Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from Mason Works Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my dear friend Victoria Reynolds. Hi, Victoria.
Hi, Kathy.
So you guys, Victoria and I are dear friends, and we were talking about global consciousness and how much fear and difficulty is sort of pushing down on us. And so I invited Victoria to come in, and she is a spiritual luminary. She is an angel of light and love and fearlessness and freedom. And what I want to do is have a discussion today, and hopefully you'll participate with us to really give you some other ways of looking at everything that's happening and see that everything is okay. So welcome, Victoria. So we want everyone to understand what a spiritual luminary is. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that is a great explanation of who you are and how you help people, because you shed light on the spiritual path, on their spiritual path. So could you talk a little bit about that for us?
Sure, and that's exactly what it is. So a luminary is one who brings light to the darkness, right? So my role on the planet is spiritual illumination, if you will. And so what I teach are hopefully some leading edge concepts. I know for people who are spiritual newbies, a lot of what I teach is brand spanking new leading edge information they've never heard before. It might not be new for those who have been on the spiritual path for a really long time. But ultimately, what I'm here to teach is how to find light within the darkness and how to find love within the fear. This contrast that we've been living in for thousands of years. And what I know, one of the things I know for sure is that we are moving out of this agreed time when we as souls all came here to experience the contrast. And we're turning this planet from a learning planet to a planet of peace. This was written in the stars thousands of years ago. It's been written in the plan, if you will, for millions of years that this is a time when the planet herself and all of her people would move out of the dark side of the galaxy, if you will, out of the outer rim of the galaxy. I mean, there's cycles that the planet goes through over thousands of years, and we've now come back around the light side of the galaxy. We've come back around people have been calling it the age of Aquarius. We're fully locked and loaded into that. We're leaving behind the contrast. We're leaving behind what people call the 3D matrix. Pick a label. There are so many different names for this reality we have been living in. Well, we're coming back around to this new light-based reality, love-based reality that we're now in the process of creating. And in order for us to create that, we have to dismantle the darkness and we have to dismantle the fear. And in order to dismantle it, it has to come to the surface for us to recognize it. So people are freaking out right now about how scary and how dark and how evil the planet is. Well, the truth is, it's been that way for the last between 11 and 12,000 years. It's not something new that's just now happening. What's happening is that it's coming to the surface for us to recognize it, for us to transmute it, and for us to no longer carry it forward into the reality that we're creating. So it's really important for people not to be afraid of what's happening right now, but to really recognize that it's being brought to the surface for us, for the light that's in every one of us, to transmute it. We wouldn't be able to even heal it if we didn't know it existed. So it's coming us up for us to acknowledge that it's there.
That's so perfect. The opportunity is for us to not assume that everything has to be the way it used to be. This break that we've had where we were in lockdown, we had time to work on ourselves, that gives us back our power to really see what is our heart's desire, because working from fear is the model that's in place right now, that has been in place for thousands of years, is a fearful model. It is not equitable. It is not sustainable. And what's happening is it's having to be reformed, and we're to take our place as co-creators in this new construction of this new earth, using our hearts instead of just this, because we can construct whatever we can construct, but that's still slave. We've been in a slave victimization model.
Yeah, for thousands of years.
Yes.
So it's interesting because I hear people complain about how this is, the last 6 presidents or whatever, the last couple of decades. It's like they don't understand this is thousands of years playing out. This is the culmination of thousands of years playing out. And so what's really, really important for people to understand is to not hold themselves victim to the story. That's one of the things I see, is people holding themselves in victim to the story. Pick a label, pick a group, pick anybody. There are so many people on this planet that see themselves as victims to the story. And what they don't understand is that when they hold themselves in victimization, they're giving away their power to actually change it. So the first things is like, you know what? I understand this is what has happened in our story. I refuse to allow the past to disempower me. I'm going to do something about making sure this never happens again. That's the opportunity we're being handed.
Right.
We're being 2020 was that when I saw it starting to happen, I was like, ooh, we're going into the giant pause button. So I was saying, like, that the old Staples button that you hit, that was easy. It's like that kind of thing, only a pause. And so we went into this great pause that gave us the opportunity to consciously create a new normal. And we've been talking about this for years. Those of us in the spiritual community, for years, we've been talking about how all the systems need to collapse, how they need to be reconstructed, and how we're the ones we've been waiting for, and to be the change in the world we want to see. And finally, it seems like this year, people are finally getting what all that means. Like, oh, got it. Oh, we actually are the ones we've been waiting for. Oh, we actually have to be the change we want to see in the world. Oh, all these systems collapsing is for our greater good. So our greatest good. I like to differentiate between that, because some people working on the dark side of the contrast are using the greater good for their own greater good. So I try to change the languaging up. That's for the highest and greatest good of all concerned. So this pause button we've been is allowing us to change everything. And people are like, oh, I can't wait for things to go back to normal. I'm like, really? Why would you want to go back to normal? That was awful. Why would you want to go back to that?
Well, see, that's the thing, is that it depends on your worldview. If your worldview was that you were playing the game, the Earth, this lifetime game, and you were playing it by the rules, which would be, as a woman, go through school, get married, have kids, get a job, maybe retire, you had all these segments of things that God would love you, or the system would support you, and heaven was later.
Right.
that whole mindset, and a lot of the world was programmed, I want to say, that way. And if that, I'm not saying that that's wrong for anybody. I just think that there's another opportunity that makes it more equitable for everyone and doesn't hurt the earth, because that model is that there's no love. It's not a loving model. It's not loving to yourself.
Right.
It's not loving to anyone. And then when you teach your children that, you're just reinforcing it. There's another generation of that construct. Whereas what what we're seeing and what we have seen is the inner work allows your outer projection, your outer hologram to be at a higher vibration, so you don't even see all the chaos. You don't even feel the frequency of distress. The when you're in the first contract I talked about, you feel everything, and your fear is running your program.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exhausting. That's why people are so depressed. So
Yeah, it is exhausting, and it's being. I think it really took 2020 for people to start to recognize what they were actually doing, because before that we were just running on the treadmill, right? Just running the treadmill.
Yep.
And it took that pause for people to go home and sit and look and say, wow, you know what? That's not working for me. And it's not really helping anybody.
Right.
Because everyone who's running that treadmill, very few people are happy running that treadmill. I mean, they're as happy as they know how to be. And we know that once we pull ourselves out of that treadmill, that what's available to us is bliss, which is
that treadmill is kind of
as happy as we know how to be.
The treadmill and that whole game. See, I keep going back to game because it feels like it were in a program that was running a simulation game that was competition driven, and everything is, oh, I won that game. Oh, what's the next level, or what's the next game? But there's no satisfaction because you barely get it. You might buy yourself a gift after you won that first game, but after a while, then those material things don't give it to you, and you're just watching your life force be sucked out of you. I mean, that's why so many people before all of this gave up everything and went and lived off grid in the woods, is because they got so burned out. And they realized that Thoreau had it right. The idea of going back to nature and living more in harmony with the system that was put in place here for our love and enjoyment is the path to success. Not having 3 cars in the driveway or 4 cars and 3 homes and 5 boats and all of that, and a Rolex and
right. Well, it's all driven by consumerism. That's what people don't understand, that this is all about consuming the planet, really, is what it comes down to. Consumption, consumerism. That's why they call us consumers. Like, that's what we do. We consume. And so this is all about consciously changing how we do everything so that we are no longer consuming. So that everything we do serves the highest and greatest good of all life on earth, and even the earth herself. And it's really interesting how many people now, it's no longer going off grid. Now as people are looking at it and saying, you know what, I want this to be my way of life. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of conscious communities being built, not like the cult that I grew up in. I mean, some of it's actually very similar, which is interesting, but without the overarching religious dogma that tells people what they can and can't believe. Instead, there's going to be a complete shift in consciousness of we, the collective of humanity, and we, the earth herself, are more important than I. And and that's the heart-based reality you were talking about. So when we start constructing this new reality, call it heaven on earth, call it 5D reality, call it new earth, call it whatever. Again, it's got a different, like, depending on which belief system you're a part of, it's going to have a different name, or your belief, not even system, but your belief language might have a different name. But the truth is that we are creating an entirely new reality on top of the existing one. So as that old reality, we're going to be creating a new reality, and the old reality will start fading away because it's not sustainable.
Right.
The visual I got with that is that it's a house of cards built on quicksand. It's just a matter of time before the whole entire thing just falls apart.
Well, it's lasted a very long time because the participants weren't aware of the game. And now that they are waking up to, hey, the media is all saying the same thing and it doesn't feel right. Or you know, I'm gonna go where my heart leads me, not what they're saying.
Right.
There's so much of that. So you work with a lot of people that are just waking up. I mean, you and I have these conversations, and we can start at any level with the frequency of it. But what you're finding is that your story, which is your polygamous daughter, and you escaped, yay! So how can people, from your experience and from what you teach, how can people escape this fear? Because it's got, there's cracking the, it's like an egg shell. They're cracking it, but they gotta have the courage to come all the way through it, when they, especially when their whole peer group or their family is still within the game.
Right. You know, and I do see it as a game. I call the most complex game ever written, because it is incredibly complex. And what people don't understand is that entire construct was built for mind control. They cannot control our hearts.
Right.
That's what they fear the most. That the controllers, for lack of a better word, that have created this fear-based construct, know they can't control our hearts, and that's why they're doing everything they can to try to do that. But the human mind is really fascinating. It is one of the most powerful forces in the universe, in that the human mind has the ability to create merely by thought. And it is also incredibly permeable, so it's easy to control. So it's kind of like, what every person needs to understand is, one, the power of their mind to be able to create their own destiny, and the power of their heart to be able to transmute the old one and create something entirely new. So everything I teach is about mind, body, heart, and spirit. We got to put heart into all of it. And so you were asking, Kathy, how do people first begin to break free? Well, the first thing they need to do, one, is to know that they want out. So I'm going back to when I was 17 years old. And I was standing on this cliff and I was ready to jump because I wanted out of my life so badly. And my inner voice came in and rescued me and said, what if everything you've ever been told is a lie? I think, and that woke me up to the possibility of an entirely new reality. And that gave me the courage to leave a couple of months later when the opportunity presented itself. So it wasn't that I wanted to commit suicide. It's that I wanted out of this very controlled environment that I had grown up in. So what I'm seeing, that's like the microcosm of the macrocosm that's happening on the planet right now. We have to want out. We have to first recognize, this is not working for me. This is an insult to my soul, and I don't want to do this anymore. I went out of that old reality. And then once we make that commitment of wanting out of the reality, we have to be willing to look at it and say, wow, everything I've ever been told about, pretty much everything, is a lie. Because it is. So the construct that's been created, this fear-based game, has been created to keep us from seeing the truth of our true divine nature, and that we are all really actually are heart-based beings. We've just been disconnected from the truth that we are love having a human experience. And so we have to be willing to challenge everything we've ever believed about everything. And that takes courage, because it's very uncomfortable to challenge what we've always believed to be the truth. And so it's really important that people are gentle with themselves through the process.
I think what else has happened is with this past 2 years experience, a lot of people have found support people like you on the internet that they never would have met you in their community. They never would have met you in any other way. So the benefit of having the extra time to actually find people on YouTube, find people on Facebook, find people on other sites, changes everything, because then you have a resource, you have a guide to help you go through the path where you're not alone. We as a species, as beings, are afraid of being alone as part of our survival mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reptilian survival mechanism. So stepping out, like when we stepped out, and it was like, after a while, I was like, okay, you can think whatever you want to think, family. That's all right. That's all right. I just got to do what I got to do. You guys do what you got to do. And, but now there's so many of us that see the world see this evolution as a positive thing, not as a negative
Absolutely.
thing. Not as a loss, but a gain.
Right. Yeah. So what I've been saying the last couple of years is that light can work wonders under the cover of darkness. So people went inside, and I was getting this message very clearly, that the lockdown was about go within and find me. Right. So what happened when we all went inside is that we started to find ourselves.
That's right.
And the intent might have been for us to be separate from each other. Okay. But what happened is that it quieted everyone down to the point where they could actually find people like us on the internet, and they could actually find that resonance that was calling from within themselves. If we wouldn't have had that big giant pause button the last couple of years, people would have never had that awakening experience.
Right, right.
This is a really, really important part of the collective awakening.
Right, right. And the fear of loss of job, of loss of friends, of loss of everything. It, in hindsight, is so different because actually not that many people, the death rate over the past several years didn't change.
Right.
It was just the causes changed, but the death rate didn't really change. So people that were going to leave the planet, which I believe everybody has exit points, entrance points, exit points. So there were so many things that you had a chance to look at and wonder and see how you can make everything better.
Right. Right. And a lot of people have gotten that message. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who've gotten the message and who are wanting to move what I call up the spiritual spiral, and that they're still low in fear because fear is so pervasive right now. And so it's really, really important that we can look at the circumstances swirling around us and not get caught up in them. So I'm being reminded of the old saying that happiness is not in the circumstances. And you and I both know it's not.
No.
That what I found fascinating is that, so I had my big spiritual awakening after the 2008 recession. What I found really, really fascinating is that in the depths of despair, that's when I found my happiness. I didn't find my happiness when I had everything, because before 2008, I had the perfect family, I had the perfect business, I had the perfect husband, I had the perfect house, and I wasn't happy. When I hit rock bottom and I was swirling around in my own personal storm, that's when I found happiness. And I finally understood, oh, happiness really isn't in the circumstances. It's in here. And I had to find it inside myself in my greatest suffering. And then everything in my outer world changed to reflect what was happening in my inner world. So my outer world reflected then the peace I'd already found within myself, within the chaos. And I think that's what's really important for people to understand. This global chaos that's happening right now is for all of us to go inside and find the happiness in ourselves instead of in our circumstances.
The thing, the thing I wanted to also share is that when we had the Great Depression back in 2930, 1900s, more millionaires were made during that period than ever before. So a shakeup doesn't mean that everything has to go down. If you go to your creative self, to your heart, to your essence, and you can uncover that and create something new from here, there's no stopping it. The energy that can be refocused from fear and dread and concern and story can be re-put into your gift, your soul mission, your opportunity to contribute to the whole. And so that's what I wanted people to know, is that number one, that Victoria is here to help you on your path if you're just waking up, or if you want more, a very concise and thorough way to understand what's happening and be able to use the information without fear. So it's an accurate definitions and ways to look at things. And then the opportunity is, once you're clear, is to then donate, support, and be in service to humanity. I mean, we really have this, we're turning around a ship. And no question we came here for this.
Yeah, I saw this. I saw a great post a couple of days ago. It was like, did you really think that you came here to watch the world implode? Absolutely not. You came here to, and I love the turning the ship analogy, because at first it doesn't look like anything's happening, right? When you first start turning a ship. But after a while, that rudder is turning, and after a while, the shift becomes really obvious, and then it's almost impossible to turn it the other direction.
Right.
So this is what's really funny, because I'm being reminded, sometimes I call this planet my spaceship. Because this is a big giant spaceship, right? And so we're turning the ship, and it doesn't look like much is happening right now, but everything is happening.
Right.
The other thing too, I wanted to share, one of the things I found during my holy shift, as I now call it, at the time I was calling it my midlife transition, my midlife rebirth. And that's exactly what it was. But I also now call it my midlife holy shift, because that's really what it felt like at first. I'm like, holy shift. But what it does is that it cracks people open to new possibilities, and it actually spurs the imagination. So the imagination doesn't really get spurred when everything is good. It gets spurred when we're brought to our knees, or when something major happens in our life that causes us to go a new direction. So one of the things, but like when I had my daughter, is a perfect example. My daughter, she's going to be 20 in a couple of weeks. I was going to say maybe next weekend, a couple of weeks. When I had her, I had a huge explosion of creativity. And a lot of moms can attest to that. There's something about having a baby and suddenly your creative juices go through the roof. And I think that's because there's a shift in direction. And the same thing happened again with the economic crash in 2008. It completely shifted my direction and opened up my creative juices again. But what that particular shift did is that it caused me to find my soul's purpose and my higher path. Where with my daughter, it was about finding better and more creative ways to be on my parenting path, which then, I had to learn how to weave the two together, until just within the last year, where my children now are old enough, they don't need mommy anymore, which is lovely, because now I can do my soul's work that I'm really here to do. But what those breakdowns and those shifts in direction do is that they open up our creative mind, the feminine mind, if you will, And then that can spur us to do really extraordinary things, which is why during the Great Depression, so many millionaires came out of that, because so many new ideas came out of that. So again, we're being given that opportunity right now of what new ideas can we come up with. Only the difference this time, it isn't about brainstorming, coming up with new ideas to make money. What's happening this time is heartstorming and coming up with new ideas can actually make a positive impact in the world.
That's so cool. So, and that's the good news. The good news is that a lot of what you're seeing had to happen because we're so far out of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's contrast, right? Even the law of Esther Hicks would say you need the contrast to see what you choose to create. And we haven't been awake, or a lot of humanity hasn't been awake enough to co-create with the universe at a high level.
Right.
And this is our opportunity now. The other thing I wanted people to know about is victimization. There seems to be, at least I see this still, is people get together and complain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have your complaining friend here and your complaining friend there. And those days of us being victimized, if we don't choose to be victimized anymore, those are, when you claim those words, you're creating at this level. So could you talk a little bit about that? Because I almost consider it spells, but I don't want to put it.
In a sense. Yeah, in a sense. So it's funny that you bring that up. People get together and complain, and I just find it hysterical. There is nothing fun about a pity party. So I don't even know why they're called parties. There's nothing fun about them. And we're actually creating our reality by speaking that into existence.
That's right.
We have to stop complaining about what has been and what is, because as long as that's the conversation we're having, we will continue to create that.
Right, right.
We have to look at all of that as the past. In the past, this is what human beings did. From this moment forward, I'm not going to claim that as my reality.
Right, right.
You know, and that the blame game was built into the collective experience specifically to keep people in that cycle of blame and resentment and againstness and victimization, which are all based in fear.
That's right.
All of them. We have to be willing to look at where are their fear-based beliefs and where are they playing out in our world? What are the programs that we're continuing to repeat, and stop being a part of that program.
Perfect.
Right. We have to stop allowing ourselves to be programmed, and we have to stop programming ourselves with all that fear, because what a lot of people don't understand is that we can get those external programs from elsewhere. When we repeat them in ourselves, we are the biggest culprit of our fear-based programming. Yes. Because our mind believes what we tell it.
Right.
We might subconsciously believe what we're being told from the media, from our religions, from our schools, right? There's that programming but it doesn't actually anchor until we buy into it and until we repeat it.
Right.
So we have to stop repeating the old story and instead look at it and say, okay, this is the old story. What lessons can we learn from it so that we don't repeat it again? But stop giving it power by repeating it as though it's the present story, because that's just going to keep creating it.
Perfect. And in addition to what you just said is the conversation about frequency, because the frequency of the earth is being up-leveled, it already has, by our place in the galaxy, in the Milky Way. The energy from the great central sun is coming and hitting us. And so every leaf on every tree, every blade of grass, every bird, every bunny, every animal, and us are all being hit with this high frequency energy that allows us to have a whole different experience here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of being a spiritual luminary. You're helping people figure out how to use that light, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, what it's doing is it's cracking open the human heart. It's much needed. So it's bypassing the mental construct and going straight into our hearts. And it's opening up the human heart to work to its full potential, which it hasn't for thousands of years. The fear actually works kind of like a cholesterol, if you will. It plugs the arteries, the electromagnetic mechanism that the human heart is. We actually emit the light of source through our hearts. Mm-hmm. And so more and more of that light is now flooding the planet and flooding into our hearts and expanding our hearts to be able to create this heart-based reality.
Perfect.
And so, yeah, so one of the things I do is help people to get into their heart space and start making choices from their heart rather than from their head. So when the heart takes the lead, the head kind of goes along and says, okay, well then let's figure out that they actually need to work together in tandem. Mind, body, heart, and spirit all work together as one human being. Our mental body, emotional body, physical body, and spiritual body. And they all work together in unison to create the experience that we're all having. The difference is that being able to use that, all four of those energetic bodies, if you will, consciously. So when we start to have this opening, this heart opening experience, and we start to see reality from through the eyes of love and through the experience of the heart, then we can have a conversation with the mind and say, hey, mind, let's now figure out how to make this happen. And the mind likes games, it likes puzzles, it likes looking for solutions. So if we find the reality we want to create within our heart, then we can put the mind to use finding the solutions that are heart-based. But one of the things that I've seen happening in the past is that a lot of people have kind of resentment toward their mind because they think that it's all ego-based and that the ego is a bad guy and all of that. The ego exists as a means of self-protection and self-preservation. It can actually serve us once it's restored to being a healthy ego. And then the ego will want to actually help with inspired action because it is at peace with itself and allow inspiration to then take the lead. And so one of the first things we need to do first is get out of our mind and into our heart. And once we really are living from this beautiful heart-based perspective, then we can call the mind back in to do what it does best, which is figuring things out.
That's so perfect. So your process that you use in the class that you teach, one of them is called Transcendence.
Yeah.
Is that part of the Transcendence process, what you just shared?
You know, it's so funny. This is the first time I've actually said that. So I'm like,
oh, really? Okay.
I never know what's going to come through, Kathy. I'm glad you're recording this because sometimes I'll say things and people are like, wow, that's amazing. Can you say that again? And then I'll laugh because I'm like, I don't know what I just said. So, and then it's not being recorded. But as I was saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. No, I've never heard that before.
well, one of the things you said is get out of your mind and go to your heart. And, you know, it used to be that getting out of your mind, people go, you're out of your mind. It was like, yes. That used to be
yeah, I say all the time, I'm so glad I'm out of my mind. Because that thing can drive you crazy.
Well, it's basically because we have so much childhood trauma, all of us do. Mm-hmm. We're on what my friend Sherry Doyen says, time loops. So we go in, we're constantly being triggered back into those childhood traumas. And we're caught when you talk about being on a treadmill, we're caught on it. And we go back into that. And that actually creates so much energy that's, in my view, wasted. It's not energy that's focused towards producing something that is of a benefit to yourself and others. It's who knows what that energy is. I do, but anyway.
Yeah, and that's it. So the mind, because right now people are living in a fear-based reality, the mind can go into this, it can mentally trip you up. It'll go into this mental spiral. So we have to be able to say, stop, I'm getting off the treadmill.
Yes.
And I'm going to go into my heart. I align my heart with the heart of source. This is one of the things I didn't understand at first. But I was like, yeah, but my heart, like, it wants all these things that it wants a relationship that's not good for me. But that's because I was stuck in my lower heart. And the lower heart can be aligned with ego, of what the ego tells the heart it wants, because it's fear-based, right? When we go into our higher heart, align our heart with the heart of source, the heart of God, the mother, father, creator, pick again the term that works for you, that divine love, that when we open up the higher heart to the heart of source down and open that up, then that becomes the lead in our lives. And then the mind can then work in cooperation with it, because it's no longer in fear, because love can transmute all fear.
Right.
And that then we can send those rockets of desire up to the universe, and that then becomes our new reality.
Right.
But we have to first recognize how the heart for a lot of people is still stuck in that fear-based matrix. And the transcendence process I teach teaches people how when I started teaching it 10 years ago, I actually had resentment toward my heart. It's so funny because I had an editor who put heart in there, and I went in and I pulled it all out. I was like, this isn't the heart stuff. It took me, and I was like, wait a minute, this is all heart stuff. I mean, that's what fear is, right? It's in our heart. And so ultimately, the transcendence process is about getting into that heart space, that spirit that's within all of our hearts. And that's really what it means to go within and find me. That's where the light of God, the love of God, is actually in our hearts.
Right.
That's what Yeshua was saying, is that be the light. Well, we are all the light.
Right.
And it's in our hearts. So it's kind of hard to get there. I mean, there's layers and layers and layers of fear that are sitting on top of it.
Right.
So the transcendence process, what it does is it helps people start to peel off those layers of fear-based beliefs, so they can actually get to the light that's within. And that what you were saying about issues and trauma from our childhood being brought up, it's really important that people recognize, and this does take some practice, to recognize, oh, got it, this is a trigger. Then you sit with it, and then you recognize, okay, this is a trigger of something from my childhood. Once you recognize it, then you can sit with it, listen to it, sit with it, be with it, and then you can start to transmute it. But what a lot of people do unconsciously, the unconscious response is to go into self-defense. This person said something that triggered me, and then we go into self-defense instead of recognizing, oh, got it. It's not about them, it's about me. This is my stuff that's coming up for me to recognize so that I can resolve it.
Exactly.
And that pulls us out of blame and brings us into self-responsibility. Blame is a fear-based construct that empowers other people to have control over our reality. When we let go of blame and victimization and go into self-responsibility, that gives us the ability to consciously respond to our circumstances.
Right.
And that is fully self-empowering. So I was lucky that I was taught that clear back in my 20s, the importance of self-responsibility. That completely changes the way you move through life.
Right.
Not self-blame, because I get that too, where people are like, oh, I blame myself for blah, blah. It's like, no. You're using that blame word again.
Yeah.
The difference is I'm going to sit with this experience, and I'm going to choose how to consciously respond. That's what responsibility means. It's ability to respond.
Yes.
Self-responsibility is saying, I'm going to sit with this. I'm going to self-respond.
Yes.
And then all blame and all victimization and all that other stuff goes by the wayside, because then we just recognize, oh, this is an experience I'm having. What can I learn from this experience, and how can I best respond to this experience?
Okay, I got a tough one for you. Ready?
Okay.
How do you incorporate forgiveness, or the possibility of training people or guiding people to a way to forgive as part of your process?
Forgiveness is a crucial part. I mean, pretty much everything I teach is spiritual freedom, right? Freedom of the mind, body, heart, and spirit. Without forgiveness, we're trapped by our past. And so forgiveness is a vital part of personal freedom. What I've found is that self-forgiveness is the most important part of that process, because once we go through self-forgiveness, it actually makes it easy for us to forgive others, because we could starting to see the entire experience through a completely new set of eyes. So what I mean by self-forgiveness isn't one of the misperceptions about that, at least for me, was I don't have anything to forgive myself for. It wasn't my fault. But it isn't about forgiving yourself for the actions. It's about forgiving yourself for the beliefs behind the actions. And a lot of our beliefs are actually what I would refer to as irrational fear-based beliefs. So if we can get the belief that's behind the action and forgive the belief, then the action itself just becomes a learning experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's a willingness first to go into the experience and find out what all of the beliefs were behind the experience. The most important thing for people to understand is, and I say this, Yeshua, as I prefer to call him, said even while he was dying, forgive them for not knowing what they don't know. And it's really important that we apply that same thing to ourselves. I forgive myself for not knowing what I couldn't possibly have known.
Perfect.
If I had known better, I would have done better.
Mm-hmm.
That's the basic belief behind self-forgiveness. And when you apply that, then you can find all of the other irrational beliefs that were behind it, because had you actually known better, really known better, you would have done better. And had they, whoever they are, really known better, they would have done better. But so few people really know what they're capable of and what's really inside of them. Very few people really know better. And if they really did, they would do better. So one example of that is when you're moving the truth through life in a space of love, it is impossible to harm another human being or another being, because you understand that you ultimately are harming yourself.
Right.
And when you're in a loving relationship with yourself, it's impossible to harm another human being. So if you knew better, you would have done better, but you didn't know better, so you couldn't have done better.
Perfect. That's the whole purpose of Ho'oponopono, the prayers. That's the whole purpose. If we look at every life, and depending on how old you are, that's why the people that are watching this, you may not have as many years of memories as I do, but what you see is almost a mosaic, and every single tile in the mosaic is important. Some of those have sharp edges and hurt a little bit, but a lot of them make a beautiful picture of a life in total. So a lot of these things that hurt us at the time were part of our soul's lesson. I mean, these things aren't random. This whole system is in perfection. It's in divine order.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know it when if we're in the fear-based reality, we're just in reaction mode. If
Right.
we're in this loving heart reality, we're in observer mode. and we change the way we receive and deliver information from the observer mode. It's pure heart.
Mm-hmm. Right. There's, if we can hold ourselves in this conscious neutral observer and just sit with it and be able to look at it and go, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. And then not allow ourselves to get sucked into the emotion of it. Not that we don't. So one of the things that makes human beings so unique is this wide range of emotions we get to experience as human beings. It is an important part of the human experience. And part of the challenge is being able to bring ourselves back to neutrality.
Right.
And just look at all of it from, oh, I see what's happening here. And it's funny, as you were talking about the mosaic, is some of those stories that hurt the very most are the most colorful parts of the story.
Right.
And then we get to a point where we're able to talk about the most painful and colorful parts of the story through the eyes of love and detachment, and then just see them as learning lessons, and then also lessons we can use to teach if we're here to be teachers,
right,
without any kind of emotional attachments to them, because the suffering is actually in the attachments to the story.
Exactly. It's judgments.
Mm-hmm.
If you are looking at something that happened to you and you haven't actually seen your part in it, or come to peace with your part in it, then you may repeat that lesson.
Right. And that's why they say you learn the same thing over and over again until you finally learn the lesson. So part of what I teach people is, well, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at it so you don't have to repeat it again.
Right.
All the lessons I can learn from this experience. It's like juicing it for everything you got from each one of those experiences. So you're basically like, you're juicing it, and then it no longer has any control, because you've taken everything out of it that needed to be learned. So then you don't have to learn it again moving forward. And we can do that with the collective story as well. When enough of us learn how to do this with our own personal stories, we can then do that with the collective entire human story, so that humanity never again has to repeat that same story over and over again.
That's right. So the war within ourselves projects to a war outside. The out of order society is a projection out of us. I mean, so much of this is inner work that creates the outer experience, and it's time. I mean, we've been given this gift of this amazing shift time to clean up our stuff, to clean up society stuff, and it won't be done overnight. So it's not like a tsunami of change will hit all at once, but it's going to be this incremental change that we just want people to understand that you do have resources like Victoria for you if you're going through change and you really don't have the tools to navigate the waters very well. Victoria has a whole set of tools. I mean, she's an expert at helping people go through change and find the goodness within. Mm-hmm. So do you agree that I keep feeling that it's going to be till the end of the decade before all the changes? I know that there's monetary change. There's so many changes that are happening, but it still feels like it's going to be 29 before. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's interesting you bring that up. As you know, I just finished another book, and it is about New Earth, creating New Earth, and the beginning of it is a rebuttal to the 2030 agenda. So there's the New World 2030 agenda, and then there's the New Earth 2030 plan. Okay. So the agenda is the fear-based realities agenda for what it wants this new normal to look like. The new earth plan is conscious creation of what the earth is going to look like, because I don't think that 2030 agenda is going to succeed. That the 2030 plan, which is the conscious plan, and it was given to me by Metatron, who is showing me what the earth is going to look like down the road. Because so many people have asked me, well, what can I do? What role can I play? How do we start creating this new earth? So it's a plan for this is how we create new earth.
Yeah.
And this world we're creating is going to be spectacular.
Yeah.
And it isn't going to happen overnight. Now, in the scheme of things, in the time frame of the universe, it's going to happen like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the human experience, it's going to take a couple of years because all of our existing systems weren't built overnight.
Yeah.
And in order for it to not create complete chaos, it's not going to completely implode overnight. It's a planned implosion.
Yeah.
As it's imploding, we're actually have the ability to create something new. While the old world is falling apart, we are actually going to be in the process of constructing something entirely new. So they're going to be happening simultaneously.
That's right.
And that, you know, there's a lot of darkness that still has yet to be exposed. And that's going to be really unpleasant for people who don't know that it actually is for their highest and greatest good.
Right, right. Well, I'm finding that when people first start waking up, the first thing they want to know is, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And it's really about, what can you be? What can you be?
Right.
It's not about doing necessarily. It's about the essence of your frequency to bring in higher vibrational thought forms.
Right.
And then act from there.
Well, as far as what can I do, the first thing to start doing is to start peeling off the layers of false and fear-based beliefs. The more that you do that, the more light that comes in and the higher we can raise our frequencies, because all of those fear-based beliefs have a very, very low frequency. Mm-hmm. So we got to be willing to peel off all of the layers of those low frequency thoughts and beliefs. Those are all actual thought forms and beliefs create form. So we have to first be willing to let go of all of those fear-based constructs within ourselves. As they start peeling off, more light and higher vibrational frequencies are allowed to come in.
Right. Exactly.
So for me, you know, in my transcendence process, the first step, the first principle, if you will, is begin with gratitude. So when you're at the very, very lowest depths of your suffering, that's exactly when you need to find gratitude. Gratitude will literally, it will burn off a lot of that fear.
Yes.
And start opening you up to entirely new potential.
Yes.
And it brings in these higher vibrational frequencies into your mind, body, heart, and spirit.
I think gratitude's like
vibration is to go in here, and gratitude is actually heart-based.
Right, that's right. It's almost like it flicks a switch. Because you're here going rah, 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 rah. And then you go to, well, I'm grateful for my kitties. I'm grateful for my house. You know, you start listing all the things you're grateful for, and then it just goes click. And then everything changes.
Exactly. And gratitude is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. It has the ability, like you said, to shift everything. What it does is it actually opens a portal to the universe to receive more of what it is you desire.
Yes.
So you stop creating your reality from the mental construct of complaining, and then you go into this heart space of gratitude. It is actual energy. You can feel it when you really get into the space of gratitude. It is a visceral energy. It's not just lip service. You can feel it in your entire body. Uh-huh. And when you're in that space of visceral gratitude, oh my gosh, it feels so good.
Right. So Omar's here, and he and a couple of people from his channel are commenting, and he just wrote, "Thank you, Omar. Gratitude is the key to a great human experience." So,
it is.
So and it's such a higher frequency that nothing that is, if people are worried about attachments or other energy forms being in their field, if they even just start with the gratitude practice, that can create a shield of energy around them so nothing can touch them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the only thing that can come in is what you choose to allow in. That from that state of gratitude, we can move into conscious choice.
Exactly.
Does this serve me? Does believing this serve me? Is doing this anymore serve me? Are these people in my life not serving me as in serve me like from an ego thing, but does this serve my highest and greatest good?
Right.
It starts to allow us to let go of everyone and everything that does not serve our highest and greatest good and our soul's purpose.
That's right.
One of the things I've noticed happens when people are brought down to their knees for these really painful experiences is that it starts to wake them up to being, oh, I'm here for bigger purpose.
Yes. Yes.
To wake that up too.
So it's not the cosmic 2x4.
It can be. If you don't listen when you're being given the signs, it can eventually turn into a cosmic 2x4.
Oh,
if you're not listening.
Well, Victoria, we'll have to do this again because I think the conversation about being able to stop and change your path from fear to love, to change your life and choose, not be afraid to choose. That's a big first step for some people. I think this conversation we should have that more often and maybe invite a couple other people to do this, because I think that this would support so many people right now that are going through the WTF is going on.
They're going through a holy shift.
I know, but you just can't even, it's surprising to people that don't know. They didn't have the perspective before. And when they start experiencing the perspective, it's a shock. And we want to help as you have the tools and the support system to help as many people as want to raise their hand right now and go and get help. So Victoria, what's the best way for everyone to reach you so that they could get help and maybe take your Transcendence class or some of your other classes?
Okay. Well, the best way to find me is on my website, victoriareynolds.com. I have a contact form that they can fill out and send to me of what it is they're looking for.
Okay.
And then on my website, there's my free Rise Up book, and just the link isn't working. So if you try to get the book and it doesn't work, it works for some people and not other people. And I don't know why that is. So if you try to get a free book and it doesn't work, then just email me and say, hey, I tried to get your book and it's not working. And I have somebody working on my website right now to fix the issue. And then I have a section called Shop. And if you click on Shop, then you'll see all of my books and my services. You'll see my 2 classes on there, and then what I call spiritual sessions. So I do one-on-one sessions as well with people who prefer one-on-one spiritual counseling.
Perfect. I highly recommend Victoria's work. I've known her, is it 10 years?
Probably.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We took a class together in LA, and we just stayed friends. And actually, right in the middle, right at the very beginning of when all of the lockdown hit, Victoria and I talked to each other almost every single day on the phone to help process what was going on. So yeah, you would love to work with Victoria. And if you're having a lot of change in your life and you really just need a higher perspective of it, that may be a wonderful. Victoria is a wonderful resource for you for change. So
thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And I love working with what I call the spiritual newbies, because they are so excited and so open to learning. And it's really beautiful to help guide them on their path.
Yes. Well, every day you wake up, it's a whole new day to realize how powerful you really are, and to really rocket to really enjoy and have a great time while you're embodied here on planet Earth. So,
Absolutely.
and Victoria is a resource for that.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.